All right, we're live. Welcome back to the Godfo Universe podcast.
Podcast. Podcast.
We're doing this series called Art Talk, and it's it's gonna be recurring. It's not a temporary thing. Is we really want to meet other artists and basically be an alternative voice to a lot of the stuff that's in indie comics that's either loud and or boring. Like it's you know what I mean? Like we're trying to elevate the platform just a little bit. Gonna play our trailer real quick for our book, then we're gonna have our guests come on. Give me just a second. This is probably gonna be loud, but we'll see. All right, so that is the trailer for our new book, Apollyon 20XX. Lest we forget, Josh, give the spill while I pull up the sites real quick.
Yeah, so this picks up immediately where Volume 1 left off. So if you haven't read Volume 1, you need to get that in advance, or you can get it as a bundle with the new volume. It finds our heroes on the run from the Order that is trying to control them and control the world. And it's a little bit more visceral than the first. I don't want to give away a whole lot, but it's about the escape and sort of the scattering of our heroes a little bit, putting them in very uncomfortable situations.
Yep, we got it on Kickstarter right here. That'll be launching December 1st. We've got it on fundmycomic, again, December 1st. And Indiegogo, again, December 1st. All the perks, rewards are the same. The add-on system is a little different between fundmycomics, Kickstarter, and Indiegogo, but you guys are smart. You'll figure it out. So, yeah, thanks for making the first one a success. And I think you're really going to like this one. It's a little bit smaller. It's 100 pages instead of 185 like the last one. It's also more affordable, but it's a little bit claustrophobic. It's very much kind of like the movie.
This is our version of The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. It's the best
horror
tone that I can tell you about as far as like, you know, the tension that's going on is the who can I trust, body horror, like you said. And it's just, it's been fun. And it's hard to believe that like we're already at volume 2. Like we were just putting out volume 1. It seemed like yesterday, and here we are at volume 2. It's awesome.
Josh is a maniac. He's done over 400 pages in a year. 3 books just for us, not counting what he does for other publishers. Anyway, that's enough of our shilling. Let me cancel this. We're going to bring in our guest. Give me just a second. Hey!
Bunny.
This
Cooper.
Is Cooper with Telepathic Bunny Comics. Now, will you go ahead and introduce yourself, man?
Hello, I'm Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to be here with you, man. You caught my attention because you seem like a smart dude. I like what you have to say on Twitter. You seem to be up in the knowledge of things. What really got me wanting to talk with you is not just your book, which I'm going to throw up here real quick.
All right.
But your bio and your background. And I'll give me just a second with that.
Also, you have a better beard than either of us. You put both of our beards together, it's lesser than your beard.
Well, beard game is strong, I have to admit. So there you go.
Let's see if this is going to work. There we go. All right. Community service. Preambles. A forgotten hero comes out of forced retirement for one last mission. Betrayed, lied to. He's back. He's going to make them pay. Let me see if I can get this to play real quick.
All right.
Roar. Colonel Ironside's here. 200 years I stood in the gap, fighting those who would harm my country. It was my honor, my sacred duty, so help me God. 9 times they took my life. 9 times I stood back up and made them pay. The freedom fighter and I could handle anything, but but someone betrayed me. I was ambushed, made mortal, rendered powerless, and retired. They passed an amendment and made me a civilian before I left the hospital. For 50 years, I watched my country change. Watched this work while erasing me from history. The day I quit my job, I powered up and discovered they lied about that too. I'll remind them of freedom. I'll remind them of duty. I'll remind them of the oaths that they serve. I'll remind them while I'm shoving it down their throats.
Nice. We need to get like a collaboration with that dude that did the Rich Men in Richland song on the banjo.
Also an awesome beard. There you go.
Yeah, also not awesome teeth, but
Yeah. No.
that's dope, man. I like it.
All right.
So this is funded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it still going though? It's a storefront.
Yeah,
ending.
it's still going. I'm probably gonna kind of do a soft relaunch as soon as I start sending it to be printed.
Nice.
Because it's been out a while. I probably put it out too early, to be honest. But so I've been doing some refreshing along the way. Got some extra stuff added on, and as I've gotten it, but it's particularly the FERA files package that's going to go with it keeps growing, and so that's probably the best add-on that I've got.
That's
But
cool, man. Now, are you the writer and artist? Artist? Which one?
I'm a writer. My artist is the husband-wife couple from Brazil called Barbasco Comics.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
They work together very, very well.
So I'm curious, like, do you know how they divide up the work? Like, who does what?
Yep, he's the penciler, inker, and she is the best colorist in CG.
She's definitely
okay.
very good, man. She's
It's
like
incredible.
the colors stand out really nice. She has good choices. It
Well,
doesn't all look washed out and like.
Well, a lot of the CG colorists, especially the ones with the most vibrant lights, including Kyle Ritter, actually, all learned from the same guy.
Okay.
He's a Brazilian down there, and he pretty much taught all the colorists that come out of Brazil, and she's one of his students.
Okay. I was laughing because I was thinking of The Boys from Brazil, that movie about where they clone Hitler.
Yeah, not exactly the same thing, but you can always tell one of his students by they have like this light reflection that they all have the ability to do, and it's I don't see very many other colorists do it like that. But the gradations that they do and things like that, I can tell one of his students right away. Like Company Man, he actually worked on Company Man, and I asked Kemosabe. He passed away while I was working on Company Man. I asked Kemosabe, "It's like, you borrowed my colorist?" And he's like, "No. This is he taught her." So
that's cool, man. So is Telepathic Bunnies, is that your imprint?
Yeah, it is. It is.
What else are you gonna be publishing under it?
Well, this is the only story so far, but there's other stories within that universe that are eventually going to kind of branch off.
Yeah, so this is the springboard for everything. It's okay, cool. I like the concept. I like the idea of sort of a pissed off and disenfranchised version of a Captain America type figure. That's really cool. That whole idea of like, oh, I'm gonna make them see that it needs to be the way it should be. That's dope, man.
Well, the way the world works is there's these tiny little microscopic entities they call Soltrons, and
is this Scientology?
No, I've had that accusation before, but no, it's not. Not Thetans. I know what Thetans are. It's not Thetans. No, but that they're into. They don't know if they're like ancient humans or alien in origin, but it's like a terraforming project that went wrong, and instead of terraforming, they're suffused all throughout the world, and so when somebody, every once in a while, somebody will have one they turn on in somebody.
I got you.
And they'll do something they call asking the question, where they'll ask what the person wants from them, and it's usually it's like their own thoughts, so nobody, very few people know what's happening, and so you'll get people that love people that are into plants might probably wind up with plant powers or something like that.
That's bad for the hentai people.
Yeah, I guess so. And yeah, you get some people that have some pretty extreme powers, because
that's a cool idea though, because you could take that in a pretty much a limitless direction as far as what could present in characters. That's really cool.
Well, but basically, because of this, there's a subgroup of humanity called expressors, and they call them expressors because what's their gift or whatever their power is an expression of the soultrons being turned on, and so that's why they get called expressors. And
so, and I'm not to interrupt you too much, just curious because it's a cool concept.
Yeah.
So, is it a situation kind of like where most people have these latent abilities, and sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't? Or is it more a thing like with the mutants and X-Men where only the people who have that genetic trait could potentially be?
No one's real sure.
Okay, so that's because it's still early in your story, but
yeah,
that's that's cool. That's interesting to play with.
Right, but it does seem to follow in families, and families seem to have a similar power. So if you have people in your family with soultrons turned on, you seem to be more likely to have it. And
like
so
it's like I was about to say it's like my family, but with poverty.
Right, exactly. Like one of the cooler ones, the guy over all the way on the right in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Black Thunder, and he winds up with two sons, and Elisha and Elijah. And
that's cool. I like that.
And one of them goes by Blackjack, and his father, actually Black Thunder's ability is resonant frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not like a Banshee or anybody, but he can he creates a resonant frequency. He can do everything from like knock somebody cold to cause an earthquake, because
break up your kidney stone for you.
I wish. I need it right now.
But he also his sons, the way it came out with them is one of his sons is like a human radio wave projector, but he can also absorb and they turn them into energy. So
nice.
he goes by Blackjack. And his other son, his power came out. The other twin son, they're both twins, but the other one's White Noise, and his power is one son does the actual frequency, and the other son's power is in the in between. And but his is very scary because he can cause like people to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do, because alpha waves have an odd effect on people. They can use it for brainwashing. And but he can also travel through static, and so he's actually the bad guy. But he wears white all the time, and his brother wears black. So it's so that's kind of, but that's both of them being from the same family, but their powers seem to be mirror images of each other.
Yeah, that's a cool concept.
Can I ask, like, what's some of the stuff that informed this idea? Like, what inspiration kind of led you down this direction for story? Because that is, it's interesting, and it is actually kind of unique instead of just, we experimented on you and here's your power.
Well, way my brain works is, I'm not the kind of guy like, they dropped into a vat of radioactive, and then suddenly instead of melting from the radioactivity, you become the Hulk or something like that. You know, it's got to have some kind of like connection. Okay, there's gonna be a connection there, and so I was like, how could there be a physical connection when there's no physical connection? It's like, well, what if
it's like dating online?
There you go. Exactly. Without the bipolar people. Anyway, but
and the bipolar, the bi-curious,
the buy everything. Anyway, or the buyer beware. Anyway,
buyer beware.
But in following that thought on I thought of there was a Star Trek episode with where these beings became like their own species. These subatomic machines became their own species, and there's some other things that are kind of added into that. But the whole idea that this is part of the world itself, it's like in the very fabric of the world. That it kind of like gives people like a physical connection to the world around them. And then it at the same time, there's like how much of it is like actually like mechanical and how much is like almost magical in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But they can also have form a connection with the person.
Okay.
But what he's wearing, right? A couple of them are wearing what looks like armor.
Yeah.
And that's called Argonaut armor, and it's because
Jason the Argonauts.
Exactly, but it was created originally for the Argonauts by the Vulcan himself, Hephaestus, and basically what it does is it transforms whatever clothing you're wearing into the armor.
That's
because
cool.
it's on a subatomic level. It just rearranges everything on a subatomic level to become armor. And so, things like that kind of exist in the world, but it's kind of a combination of almost magic, but at the same time, like high technology, going off of Arthur's, I think it's Arthur C. Clarke saying that sufficient enough advanced technology looks like magic to the uninformed. And and so there's a lot of thought that went into it,
Good. There should be. I like that.
There you go. But yeah, it's a great world. I know I'm on the ground level right now. I'm not freaking out about not having the numbers that I wish I had. But
hey man, if it's funded, it's funded.
Yeah. And if it's good, once it's printed, it's not like it's going anywhere. Once you build, when you can get it out to enough people, build that platform, the people that are going to love it will find it, and it's going to be there for them. That's part of the shrine. I mean, like you're in the comic book, indie comic world. Mm-hmm. That's the struggle, is just getting it in front of eyes. It's if you can have the best book that ever was created, but you got to get it in front of the right people that can appreciate it.
I absolutely know that I have the right world. I have the right main character, and I have the right group of characters. They're just I believe that that story is a pre-existing artifact, and that what the story I'm telling is not my story. It's the story of this world.
Yeah, well, and it's culturally relevant, and I think that people are going to see the relevancy of it more and more in the next 4 years at least.
Yeah. Well, the main impetus for the thing is that when he got injured, he was like the protector. And he was part of his own. He's basically his own branch of government. The original founding fathers put him overpowered people because they thought he was going to be immortal, and so they put him overpowered people in the Bill of Rights. And but when he got injured, they were able to use the terror that people felt that him going down and being damaged and being retired, not being there anymore. they leveraged that into a 28th Amendment that basically created a permanent underclass controlled by the government and the federal agency to regulate it, called the FERA, the Federal Express Regulatory Agency. I even have a seal and everything.
Well, and I guess it's a matter of too of like they kind of threw him under the bus as soon as he wasn't able to do everything that they wanted him to be.
Yeah.
That's
right. Well, they told him he was that he was mortal now, that they told him that if he would work for the government as a intelligence asset, because his brain, he's such a smart, he basically is one of the most brilliant minds they've ever seen when it comes to intelligence. And so they're like, well, if you work for us in intelligence and protecting America, but give up being a hero, then we'll employ you and let you be direct, like the tip of the spear, let you stay on the front lines. And so he took that bargain, but he eventually figured out that they shuffled him off to the side and that they were just managing him. So he quits the job. And the day he quits the job, he actually uses his powers for the first time. And it's the hand that he had been living without for 50 years moves. And so he finds out that they lied about it, essentially.
Well, and there's a lot of power in that, and the idea of how much of your reality can be dictated to you by what everyone else have told you to perceive of it. That there's a lot in that from a storytelling standpoint that's interesting to me. That's really cool.
Yeah. But basically finds out that there's this group of criminals that are in this new program called community service. Before that, this event happened, you only had three options. You could live powerless, work for the government, or be incarcerated. That was your three options. And but they managed to push through Congress one more option, which basically is that even if you were incarcerated, you could return to society by basically giving back to the community enough. And but they don't want this program to exist, the powers that be. And so all these criminals are basically marked for death. And so he's basically going to go here and intervene in this kill box. And if he can get these people out of there, he'll have his army. And because they're all like some of the most powerful expressors recorded. And so, but basically a ready-made army if he can get them out of there.
So what would be the ultimate goal? Like, what is he trying to accomplish once he gets that army? Or is that something that we're saving for later?
Well, his ultimate goal is to get the 28th Amendment repealed and free the people. And the only way he can see doing that is to do enough heroic acts that people will not be afraid of powered people anymore and see them more as heroes than they did as a terror. Because the press all convinced them that these people were, out of control, and they were scaring they scared the people into doing a 28th Amendment.
Imagine that.
Right.
I wrote this during COVID. Okay.
It doesn't show at all.
No. But because it just fascinated me how you can scare people into doing things against.
It's amazing how much fear mongering, and that's not something new. That's not a new concept at all. No. But yeah, it's a good time to address it, and that's something that I get tired of people who look at. Still, even after all these years, that look at comic books and throw the whole industry under the bus and say, "Oh, that's kids' stories about." Like, you can tell some really complicated stuff and get into really deep, important issues in comics. I mean, you can also do a bunch of cheesecake and stupid stuff, but used correctly, the medium can really address incredible topics. I mean, I look at something like V for Vendetta, and that's still such a powerful book. And it was a product of its time, but it's also like it still resonates today because it's talking about bigger ideas than just, wham bam, let me fight this superhero and let me fight this villain and let's steal the kryptonite. And, it's actually got, the potential to be just as deep as a novel can be. And I think that that's the challenge particularly for the indie comic scene, is to show that we're better at those deep stories and those exploring those other types of things than the big two are. Even bigger, probably even more than Image and Dark Horse. I know they're indie, but barely.
Right.
And at this point, to show that, hey, if you want to read a real story that reads like an actual novel that has something to say, you're going to find it on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. You're not going to find it in Barnes and Noble in the comic book graphic novel section. That's this big beside the massive manga section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me share this picture right here.
All right.
This is the image that kind of inspired me.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I've been waiting for somebody to do this. Like I know Japan jumped on it right away with All Might, but I'm glad you got that in there early.
Yeah, that's an iconic picture, man.
Man, that's gonna go down as the most hard image that ever existed.
Oh yeah, it's like I told somebody, I was like, "That's the most American thing I've ever seen."
It's the hardest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how anybody who, even if you hated his guts, I don't know how that picture doesn't win you over.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like,
man,
good Lord.
I've been thinking about that a lot recently because all the stuff that's happening in the UK, like everything. And it's like, I just want to start like making like bot forums on Twitter that anytime I see someone talking about the stuff happening in the UK for good or bad, to just put like, like a skill issue from America or something like.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You guys could have fixed this a long time ago, but you didn't.
Well, basically, what the thing that inspired me the most is his connection to the crowd at that moment was so much that it overrode his own self-preservation. And
that's what being a leader and a man is supposed to be.
Exactly. I think up to that moment, he believed that he wanted it, but at that moment, he knew that he had to, that he was the one for it.
Yeah.
And that there's like a destiny involved, that God had, saved him for that. But when he got up and he looked, and nobody had run, nobody was panicking, even though the gunshots rang out and they still didn't know who was up there. And nobody had panicked, nobody had run, and everybody was concerned for him. And at that moment, it's like he loved them before, but at that moment he would die for them.
Yeah.
And they pretty much would die for him. And
that
Carpentore did. So
there's a lot of factors, and I don't want to. We're not going to roll this into a political thing, but there's a lot of factors. No, there's a lot. It's not.
No.
But I will stand my ground that picture won him that election more than just about anything else. That moment in time won that election.
Well, that and the fries and the didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. No.
He's like, if you elect me, I'll make sure that all the ice cream machines are working at all times. They're not going to be from China anymore. They're going to be American-made ice cream machines that work.
Well, the thing about it is after that, he just, it's like it freed him in a lot of ways. And he didn't mind. He got to where he just didn't care if he looked ridiculous. He didn't care, how far he had to go. He just did whatever was necessary for people to know that he respected them. He was on their side. And when he was doing that you see these things that Kamala Harris doing, was like visiting the rest stop and getting her Doritos, and it was like staged, and you could tell everybody in there was actors, right? But then you watch Trump, and he's learning to make fries from this dude who's like doing this 9 to 5, and and just some kid basically, and he's actually respecting the kid, and he's like, oh, and then he walks it through, and he's like he's trying to impress the kid and do the fries right. And it's just endearing, and it was a so genuine thing. And they're like, it was staged. He doesn't work at what? It's like, we know he doesn't work at McDonald's.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
Dummy.
He surely does eat there, though.
He eats
He
there, though,
damn sure eats there.
And him having RFK Jr. on his plane with McDonald's was hilarious. That was so hilarious. You know, he's just trolling him.
Oh yeah, RK over there twitching from the just saturated fat. Saturated fat.
His eye was probably twitching like that, you know.
It's so unhealthy seed oils.
Oh man, but
I don't know, man. That dude's fitter than all of us. So
oh yeah, he can do push-ups from a handstand. Okay,
yeah, he's a beast. I can't say anything about. He's way healthier than I am, or ever will be.
And then some overweight influencer was like, "I don't want him to be in charge of health because I
bet you don't."
Yeah, I'm sure you don't. You know,
that sounds pretty understandable.
But the thing about that the best art does, and C.S. Lewis, actually J.R. Tolkien was talking to C.S. Lewis, and he's talking about the fact that story is all around us. It's happening all the time, and we're all part of a bigger story. And when we tell stories, we're basically distilling truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so we're taking the world around us to build what we're doing. And if we're pure enough with it, if we're just get ourselves out of the way and just tell the story as you know, unfettered as possible by our own biases, by our own personality, by our own experiences, and just tell the story like it's like it comes to you, then that's going to resonate with people. It's always going to resonate more than anything that somebody just contrives. Okay. And what happened with Trump and Kamala was just a perfect example of that. I mean, he sits down with Joe Rogan and they talk about like UFC fights and stuff like that. They
talked for 3 hours and there was never a lull anywhere in that conversation.
No,
I had to take more breaks than Trump did.
I know. And when he was talking to Theo Vaughn, he was like asking Theo about his drug addiction. You know, what was that like? It was like he was interviewing Theo, and it was like a great, genuine conversation.
Yeah, and Vance had a good conversation with Theo as well.
Oh yeah, and Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
yeah, and to chase this rabbit a little bit, a telepathic rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Like, what hit me when Trump got elected was what kind of set me off was, I mean, I'm a devout Christian. What set me off was seeing a lot of Christian, like progressive pastors or whatever, like just totally bombarding Christians with stupid hand wringing, like feminine guilt and stuff.
Right.
And I was just like, man, this is the first time in my life I have ever seen American dynamism.
Yeah.
Like, it's the first time I've ever seen like masculine energy in the public era. Like,
it was the first time that we got to see the energy that built this country.
Yeah.
We're
not used to seeing that, you know?
No. I mean, think of the balls on the guys that looked at the most powerful entity on the planet and said, I think we can kick your ass.
You're talking about Goku, right?
But no, you're right. It was people that
was later. That was later.
Yeah, it's just people standing up and say, you know, we really are tired of this, and we actually don't have to put up with any more of this. We're not letting you have it.
Yep, there's a line in the sand.
It's like one of the trailers that I played, the trailer before this one. I played the Patrick Henry speech.
Yeah,
and it's just like you know, what do you want us to do here? You know, do we live with tyranny, or do we die with dignity? You know, do we die for freedom? And it's like, I don't know what you're gonna do, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And a lot of people listened to that speech. They read transcripts of that speech. It just got circulated all throughout the colony. And they're like, you know what? I'm tired of these assholes telling me what to do.
Yeah, it's a rallying cry, though. It really
I'm
is.
tired of us sending all of our money to some place away from me for them to spoil it and live high off the hog while I'm struggling by the sweat of my brow. Does that sound familiar?
And then virtue signal me the whole time I'm trying to.
Exactly.
That you're taxing me out of every penny I've worked for.
Exactly. And I hate to say it, but Michael Moore nailed it when he was talking about Trump is the biggest FU.
Yep.
And the biggest middle finger that America could send to the Washington elite.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're all, not everybody's like just absolutely in love with him. I'm probably simping more for him than I probably should. But the thing about it is we knew he was something different. And we knew he was that this was the change. Okay. And whether it was good or whether it's bad, it was that something had to change.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. It's like, does everything outside of slow, controlled demolition evil? Because that's what happens. People screamed everything was evil, everything was fascist. Where it's like, do we have to accept decay? Does it have to just be that? No,
do we have to accept the status quo that is killing us and dooming our kids and our grandkids to life of indentured servitude?
Yeah,
and
that's a good way to put it.
And it's like with American Dream is pretty much dying in front of us, and here's somebody who seemed to be something different. And he seemed to be like a return. When he said America, make America great again, we believe that America used to be great and that it's not great now.
Yeah.
And so when he said that, it was just like click, right?
A positive vision for the future.
Yeah. And one thing about when I went to write Colonel Ironsides is I wanted that Chad energy that basically founded this country. I was like, what happens if that Chad energy gets transported into modern times and dropped right in the middle of what we're dealing with? And it's like, what if one of our founding fathers wound up in modern America with enough power to change it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I was like, what would that look like? And Ironsides was my answer to that. And
I like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what the idea of Captain America was supposed to be, being frozen and waking up. But I mean, even in the movies, they kind of slowly devolved him, and he wasn't bad by the end, but it was just like, okay, he chose Carter, over the American dream.
Right. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Ironsides is basically my response to Hell Hydra.
Yeah.
It was a desecration of everything that Captain America stood for, and the fact that they thought they could do that and get away with it.
Well, the guy who wrote it was like a crazy race baiting moron.
Oh yeah. And so I kind of want that needs to come back into American comics. It needs to be in there somewhere. And I've seen since that a whole bunch of other patriotic characters have been showing up in indie comics. And I think I'm not the only one that felt like it's need to be restored. And
when people have the freedom to make their own heroes and they're making tons of them that are patriotic, what that should tell you what people are thinking and what they want.
what they long for.
Yep. Well, it's like that picture right there. That's the Freedom Five. Okay, that's the team that he was with him, and you got the Hispanic American guy who's saluting. Who's like he's all American. He's kind of young at that time, and he's kind of like the idealist. And then you got the guy behind him, Killhauler, who's actually a son of Poseidon. He's been around a couple thousand years and is kind of over this shit, but. He's friends with Ironsides and believes in Ironsides, if nothing else. And then you got Ironsides, a stalwart, first person in America to show significant power and help them fight the British. and they gave him to be over the powered people, and then you got the hardened cowboy who's actually one of Custer's soldiers until he picked up an Indian curse at Little Bighorn that wasn't supposed to go to him, and became this guy. But he's kind of like he's there, he's got nothing else better to do, right? That's his attitude. And then you got this guy was experimented on at the Tuskegee Institute, and which increased his powers far beyond where he's supposed to be. And he's kind of like he's basically trying to fight for a country that still treats him and his people like the second-class citizens. And so he's kind of he's kind of a hard character. He's kind of a little bit on the sullen side, as it were. But he's not even entirely, he doesn't entirely like Ironsides, but he believes in what Ironside stands for,
Yeah.
But you see all that. I tell you all that, but you look in that picture, and all that is in that picture.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the power of comics. I told you all that phraseology and all that description, but you can look at that image and get all that.
Yeah, it's communicated. Yeah.
Communication.
It is the purest form of storytelling that we have. It's perfect. It's the perfect meeting of the visual and the prose. It's like it's where it meets, basically.
So tell me how you got to this point. Like, that's what really caught my attention is let me pull up your bio here.
Okay.
You grew up with a love of hero fiction and history, starting with the Bible, mythology, then fairy tales. Like that, that is a solid foundation. And unfortunately, it's a foundation many people don't have. I'm not even lamenting that as a Christian, lamenting that just as an artist and a writer and as a person. Like the Western canon used to define everything we did.
Oh yeah.
So can you go into that a little bit for me? Like what specific, I know the Bible, what specific mythologies and fairy tales and stuff?
Well, the Bible, I had a children's Bible. My dad used to read to us, and I would, even when he wasn't reading it to us, I would go look at it because it had pictures in it and I was like pronouncing Melchizedek before I was. I was reading on.
You can pronounce it, but you couldn't tell us who he was.
No one can.
I can tell you exactly. I can tell you. I can't tell you what we know about him, but
exactly.
But but just being able to, my dad would have me sound them out for him, and so that taught me to read better than anything. But I'd see these pictures, and this children's Bible did not cut any corners. I mean. And when it said that the witch of Endor called up the ghost of Samuel, it had a picture of it. Okay. And when it says Elijah was carried up with a chariot of fire, it had a picture of that. Or the Hebrew children, walking around the fiery furnace, it had a picture of that.
See, I can identify with that because my grandma had one of those big, huge family Bibles with all the like Rembrandt paintings in them.
Oh, yeah.
I look at it all the time.
Well, the one that got me though was a picture of Samson blinded, and he was pushing the pillars of the temple, and it was falling down around him, and whoever had drawn it had him smiling, and the idea that this guy was like just he was finally fulfilling his mission. The first time in his life, he was okay with God. God was okay with him, and he was doing exactly what he was built to do.
Killing people.
Killing people. Killing a lot of Philistines. But his whole entire life, he was like bored and just like, and aimless. Dumb. Yeah. And it's like that one moment he was okay with God, and God was okay with him, and he felt it, and he was like where he's supposed to be. Yeah. And but that was all in that picture. But I remember like that being really imprinted upon me. And then when I got into school, I started about the Greek mythology, started the whole idea of a pantheon, and this person having this brand, and something like that. and like Poseidon's earthquakes and sea, which he was always my favorite. But then you had Zeus, it was like air and sky and whatever, and then Hades was down in the ground or whatever, underground, and he was kind of the bad guy. But that was that kind of concept, and then you had the demigod heroes like Hercules and Perseus, and so that was like a continuation for me. But then when I was in like middle school, somebody sold me his comic book collection.
Fool.
And the bad thing about it was I bought it off. I bought him off of it thinking that I could get the money, and then my uncle refused to give me the money. And I've always wanted to look that guy up and pay him back. But the first comics I got were from that, and it was just a continuation. It's like it clicked with me. This is America's mythology.
Yeah.
Well, and it's cool too, like, because that's something that a long time ago, like in the early years, America did have a mythology. You had Paul Bunyan and Pecos Bill and Babe the Big Blue Ox and stuff.
Yeah.
These large, literally larger than life American fairy tales. And then that disappeared for a long, long time until comic books.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And what hero fiction does for a society, and what it does is it basically fills in the blanks for young men trying to discover who they are, how to become a man, and so if you're fatherless, you turn to comic books, and comic books will show you the way to be a man, or if you have a crappy father who doesn't teach you anything, you can look at comic books and they'll point you in that direction. And that's what hero fiction was meant to do. That's what its role in society is because girls basically get to womanhood by chronological. They mature physically, they become women. But boys
have inherent value.
But boys have to earn it. They have to earn their way. They have to basically figure it out. And if you don't have a father figure, if you don't have men around you to help you with that, then the hero fiction used to fill in that blank. It used to fill that gap. And that's why we got so many aimless kids, is because our hero fiction has been destroyed.
Well, it got mutated into rappers, pop stars, drug addicts, something like that.
Right.
Twitch streamers.
Twitch streamers, right. And so this is an effort. We as conservatives, as Christians, as people on the right side of history, we have advocated the culture. We have said, "Oh, that's not important," and we let them dominate it. And we used to have things like Ben-Hur. We used to have the Ten Commandments. We used to have these epics, but we also had we had our heroes in our movies. The Duke. John Wayne. How many men made it to adulthood and knew how to be a man because they watched The Duke?
Exactly.
Okay? And we used to have these guys, and they ruined culture, and they washed them out of culture. Then after The Duke, I would say the next one's Steve McQueen. Because that guy, you looked at that guy and you knew how to be a man. You knew how to become a man. And we have Tom Cruise. Is about all we got now.
Well, after that, you got what's his name? James, kid that died in the car wreck.
James Dean.
Yeah, James Dean was Rebel Without a Cause. That's where it took a drastic shift. It wasn't about being a man. It was about being an angry young man.
And then that just gradually shifted into the Dirty Harrys and the Clint Eastwood anti-hero. And, by the time we hit the 80s.
Yeah, it was still cool, but yeah.
Yeah, but by the time we hit the 80s, though, that the anti-hero was in full swing. Praise the vigilante that kills the bad guys. Praise the person who's as bad as the villains are, but comes out on top. And then by the 90s, that's just
and to be fair, just to stillman that a little bit, a lot of that came out of the high crime from the 60s and 70s, and people feeling like the government was failing them.
Yeah, and somebody has to step up.
Yeah, so a lot of that did come from a masculine urge to protect. I mean, like Death Wish, or Jeff Goldblum gets his head blown off, or whatever.
Yeah,
in spectacular fashion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But no, you go from Father Knows Best to Homer Simpson, and that's a pretty big leap in what, 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
but comics are kind of holding it down, and then we get the Watchmen.
Yep.
And then everybody wanted to be the Watchmen, and
it's all subversion.
It's all subversion. Yeah. It's all of it. It's all communistic subversion. I mean, it's all Marxist, you know. And
well, Alan Moore isn't a avowed Marxist, you know. Like,
well, he's avowed something or other.
Yeah, he's a socialist and a magic magician with like a magic with a K or whatever.
And the funniest thing that I think the most hilarious thing is how many people were inspired to be better people by the person he hated in that comic.
Yeah, Rorschach.
How many people have stood up to overwhelming odds because they were inspired by that guy standing up to a god and said, "You're going to have to kill me because I can't live with this.
I can't step aside for you,
bud. I cannot stop." You know,
that's the thing is it's the curse of like the progressive artists for them to make characters they don't understand.
Yeah.
And everybody loves. But no, that's the spirit. Like the idea of Rorschach standing up to Adrian and Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
And like Alan Moore, bless his heart, doesn't realize. I mean, he wrote Winston from 1984 standing up to O'Brien. Like he did all of it. It was
and he wanted him to be pitiable. He wanted him to be like somebody to be disgusted by. And
this man with principles, he's willing to die for them.
And then
what an idiot.
Yeah. It's like that line where he's like, you don't get it. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here
with me. That's the most awesome line from that whole story.
How do you write that? And you're like, yeah, this guy sucks. You know?
Yeah, seriously. And
everybody will see that he's definitely like homeless. They won't like him.
Oh yeah.
He eats beans and doesn't shower.
I mean, I do that too.
The funniest thing is because Alan Moore is still a good storyteller. Even as much as he was disgusted by Rorschach, he still wrote him right. He still wrote him.
He had to. It's a Steve Ditko character. Like,
yeah. And he hated Steve Ditko so bad, and this whole entire thing was to take a dump on Ditko, and he wound up writing the quintessential Ditko character. The quintessential Ditko would be like proud to have written Rorschach.
Oh, that's the thing. That's the thing, and like even when he's trying to subvert it, like Rorschach's truth prevails at the end of it. Like you can only destroy it so much because you're right, because Alan Moore does understand story.
Right.
He knows that's how it has to go. And I've also people say that about George R. Martin. The reason George Martin is the reason he can't finish his story is because he can't find a way to subvert it at the end.
No.
Like it has to have the good king wins. And he doesn't want that.
And what they did that the last season of Game of Thrones shows why he can't write the end of it.
Yeah, the ending sucks.
Because they couldn't write it the way it was supposed to go because of their Marxist ideals, and they subverted everything, and everybody rejected it. And so we'll never see the end of that story now because George R. Martin got a good view of what would happen if he finished it up the way he would finish it up. You know,
he's also getting enough of a paycheck not to have to do it to keep the lights on.
And see, what's so simple though is, and this is like maybe like how an 80s guy would have done it at the time. It's like all he has to do is make the last chapter, like the battle's over, take the last chapter, make it from John's perspective. John's going to the north and he's not concerned with what they're doing in the Iron Throne. He's just gonna be a good person. He's leading his people.
Right.
You can leave it unsolved if you solve it with the good king doing something.
Yeah.
Like, man, that's how they would have finished a lot of stories in like the 80s and 90s if they didn't want to do an ending.
Right. Right.
Sorry, I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but
well, it's like there's this whole conversation. I mean, look it up. But C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, and
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis was trying to, wrap his brain around the fact that J.R.R. Tolkien is his genius that dwarfs him, and he believed that Christianity was for weak-minded, fools. And he met this guy who could kick his ass intellectually, and yet he believed in things.
Yeah.
And he couldn't wrap his brain around that until J.R.R. Tolkien is like, you know what? This whole entire story is part of God's story. We're all part of God's story. And once you start understanding that, then you start seeing storytelling for what it is. And all it is,
Tolkien could that's what made him and Lewis, I believe, but Tolkien especially, he could do that mind and the heart, and that's how he helped convert. Lewis was he told him you believe all these other gods, or you believe these stories, or you believe that they're fine. There's different gods. The only one that makes you mad is the Christian God.
Exactly.
Because it's real.
He says, why is that? And he said this great line. He's like, the fact that you can conceive of something outside the prison walls, and he says, that the physical people that are like physical is all there is, they're like, they put you in a prison, right? A prison that there's nothing else outside of, but the fact you can conceive of there's something outside these walls means that there must be something outside these walls.
Yeah.
And so there must be something beyond the physical. There has to be something out there bigger than you and more powerful, And one of the things that makes you a good storyteller is giving in to the powerlessness of finding a story and subverting your ego enough to write it down like it comes to you.
Yeah.
And just believing that there's something bigger out there telling this story, and you're just tapping into it.
Well, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
I know you got this book out and ready to go, sending it to the printers.
Yep.
How far ahead have you written or planned, like as far as where this story is going, and is it going to branch off at all? Like, what are you looking at as like the shape of the future of this?
Well, I've got stories in a city that's located in this world, and I wrote the city a long time ago, and when I was writing this, the World Bible for this, I realized that the city fit in this world, and that I've been writing in that city a long time, and so I've got plenty of stories in that. And I've got an expansive World Bible. I mean, once you have a World Bible established and you know the rules, then the amount of stories you can tell are as infinite as the amount of people that are in the world. I mean, if you ever see the Marvels, that comic book that Alex Ross, that's Buscema, I think, wrote. Not Buscema, but anyway. But Buziak wrote. The thing that it showed me was everybody in that entire world has a story, not just the heroes. And when you start taking that point of view that, as long as you establish the world, then you can tell any amount of stories in it. And so the first time when somebody basically hands me a writing assignment, the first thing I do is I build a world. And if I have the rules of the world, if I have it established, then like recently I was handed this writing project that I hope to continue forward with, but the guy hasn't given me the go ahead. But he had this like detective who wore like an old sea captain's gear. And he seemed to be older and wiser than his apparent years. And to the extent that he seemed to know everything and been everywhere and done everything. And I was like brainstorming on this thing, I suddenly got it in my head, the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's indicated in that poem that the guy was an immortal. And so what if this guy is the Ancient Mariner, and he's trying to find the albatross, the physical embodiment of the albatross, so he can be freed from his curse. And while he's doing so, he's trying to do good deeds along the way. And
let me stop you right there, man, because that's a pretty deep idea and a deep concept. Like, that's why I wanted to kind of start doing this and talk to people, and not only to give people a chance to promote their comics, but I'm gonna go off on a tangent real quick if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's just, this isn't a comparison, but basically we got bored. A lot of comic shows only talk about comics, and they only talk about maybe each other's comics. Yeah. I'm interested in the creators and the artists and stuff that people don't get to talk about themselves. And what you just said, like, I hate to say it, but maybe people our age, maybe older, might know that story. Yeah. An entire generation or two probably will never read that or even hear of it.
Right.
And like, we're going to lose storytelling as a skill and as an art going forward without the Western canon. So what you just said, like, that is something that someone like a Moore or probably more than Miller, but that's what that deep, if you have that deep well, even if you're a socialist, you can write still a good story. Now imagine if you're not a socialist. what I'm saying is,
I think of it this way. You're going to go to cook a dish.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is going to make the better dish? A pantry full of ingredients from all different parts of the world, from all different ages, some aged ingredients, some brand new fresh ingredients, or a pantry where there's like very few ingredients at all, and they're just basically they're all from the same place, and they're all from the same time, and they're all from like the same culture.
Well,
who's going to make a better dish?
Is Meemaw cooking or not?
Well, Meemaw is not cooking. No.
Okay, that changes it.
But maybe
I'm just messing with you. I got you, man.
I know. I've seen Depression era cook. I know. Anyway, what that woman could do with hot dogs and
right.
Holy crap!
And some cut dandelions.
But it's like I tell people. I was like, they ask me how they can be better writers, and I always say, how much do you read?
Yeah.
How much do you absorb? How much do you, I mean, just audio. Get some audio books, or if you're not like somebody that likes to sit down, listen to some audio books, or watch everything. Not just like genre. Watch romances. Watch go back to the early parts of cinema. Watch some black and whites. Watch and just basically, the more that you can put in that pantry, the more you can put in that cupboard. Like I read the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner when I was in high school, and I probably haven't thought of that poem more than 3 times since. And yet, when this character came up on my radar, and my brain was searching around for, okay, this guy's familiar. What is it? Follow that thread. And then boom, I made the connection. And suddenly I have this character with a whole backstory and a whole entire history and
an Iron Maiden soundtrack.
And a hell of an Iron Maiden soundtrack. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I wrote the first 2 pages, I was listening to Bruce Dickinson. So
nice. But what you just said is that idea of following the inspiration. Basically, you can't follow where you don't like. You don't know it if you don't recognize it. You can't follow something if you don't know it exists. And if you're an ideologue and you're trying to shove a story in a certain direction, you won't follow those rabbit trails.
No. But it's a lot of what we do is detective work.
Yeah.
I was writing a story. It was it was set during the Sherlock Holmes era. Okay. And when I was writing this story, I came across this character as a police surgeon from Scotland Yard, and for some reason the guy was French. And I just didn't. I was like, why is he French? I didn't know why he was French, but I just wrote him as French. And then later on, when I was doing this court that he was testifying in, I had to get back to his credentials. And I was like, what are the credentials a Frenchman would have during this era? And I found somebody called a fundmycomic, who happens to be the grandfather of modern forensics.
Oh, wow.
And he was a Frenchman. And he established the first school for forensics in the world. And this guy, and so I made this guy a student of him. And
That's
it made
cool.
sense. But I didn't know he existed when I made him French.
Yeah.
But for some reason, of just basically following.
It's the whole idea of a muse, man. You follow the muse.
You follow the muse, and you trust the story. You trust is if you get yourself out of the story as far as you can get it yourself, and just you're the amanuensis. You're dictating. You're just getting your self completely out of it, and then when you go back later, you will find all sorts of things that you can hone or you can make stronger, and you will find things that you had no way of knowing that are true, because the story is the distillation of truth.
So let's play with that for a minute. That just because I'm always curious about writers and their process. For our stuff, I'm the artist, although we generate the story together. But
Josh is also a great writer. Yeah,
Dan's script, but I write short fiction and stuff too. But like, I'm always curious to hear people's approach, because like when I write something, 99% of the time I've already got the whole story figured out. I know where I'm starting. I know where I'm going to end. I may have like just a general outline, but I know where it's going. And then there's other people that literally just start writing and let the story find itself. Where do you fall? Because it sounds like you're more on that second end, but how structured is your process, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, Stephen King, his book on writing is like my Bible.
It is a good read. I've read that one a few times.
The guy is god-awful, but he was right about this. If you can like separate him from the work, it's actually one of the best books.
Oh, it's an incredible.
I have no trouble doing that. I can put artists here and
I've offered that book up to several people as like if you,
I put it in people's hands all the time.
I do too.
As a matter of fact, Telepathic Bunny came from the first thing that he wrote.
Oh yeah,
basically the bunny in the cage on the red tablecloth with the blue number 8. And I put that image in your head from where I am writing this. It's a form of telepathy. Telepathic Bunny.
That's cool, man. I like that.
That's where I got it from. But he also said that story is a pre-existing artifact. And when somebody goes to pull an artifact out, the skeleton of a dinosaur out of the ground, what they're doing is they're cutting away everything that isn't the dinosaur. They're not shaping it. They're not trying to influence what's the dinosaur. They're trying to get as much of it out as possible intact. And then it is what it is. Once they get it out, then they determine what it is.
It is what it is.
And so I will, when I go, there are times when I have an idea of where it ends, like I've kind of got the shape of the dinosaur, or at least how long it is. But
how much girth?
How much girth it is, yeah.
How thick a vein?
Right. But the bottom line though is I don't shape it. I don't try to make it something. try to impress upon it what it should be. That's the problem with modern storytelling, is they're always trying to shape something. They're always trying to like influence it in some way. And you can always tell a crippled story. Okay, example. The Falcon and Winter Soldier. 3 episodes, you could tell that the story was just flying. It was doing great. You know, the Zemo was just awesome. And it was obvious that Bucky was supposed to get the shield. Okay. It was just so obvious that Bucky was going to be the one to get the shield. And he needed it because he had a redemption arc to fulfill. And then at the 3rd episode is when Alonzo would have taken over. Victoria Alonzo would have taken over. And immediately, what's the first thing they do? They
Disney it up.
Bucky loses his arm. The Dora Milaje kick his ass. They take Zemo back into custody, and immediately Falcon goes from a strong character to a victim. And for the rest of the show, it's like Falcon as victim. The dude couldn't get a bank loan. Hello, what? What the?
Yeah,
right.
He's a fucking Avenger.
He's a vet.
Exactly. And so, and just the asinine things like that were happening. And then you got this character who's like
weakest villain on the face of the earth.
Well, but the thing about it is,
frizzy-haired girl.
Yeah, but then you got this guy over here who's trying to be Captain America and failing, and they were just treating him like crap the whole entire time. But yet at the end of the show, John Walker is the only character you cared about in that whole entire damn show.
He was awesome. I thought he was perfectly played too.
And it's the reason why, and I reflected on this later, and the reason why is because they had basically made him such an afterthought in their brains that they didn't screw with him.
Yeah, they let him be what he's supposed to be.
They let him be what he's supposed to be.
If that series had leaned heavier into him,
yeah,
and if it had leaned and given us more, because they introduced the older black character, I can't remember the name, that had been a super serum like test subject. And if they had let that guy have
Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah, Isaiah Bradley. If they had let him have more of a story, if they had let Zemo stay the main villain and let him be behind more of it than he was, that could have been a really good show. But they can't help themselves. They have to Disney it up.
No.
They have to. They just can't stop themselves.
The same thing happened with WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision started out with a really interesting concept. Yep. It was fun to watch, which is rare for most of that stuff. It was really interesting and fun, and then it did the same thing. It just had to make it
after the 3rd episode.
Yeah, it's always that bait and switch, and now I don't trust them for anything anymore.
And you know who showed up after the 3rd, right after the 3rd episode and screwed everything up? Agatha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what they could have done, and this is kind of far-fetched, but they go back to Captain America. If they wanted to bring in the mutants, man, you should have had them run in with Omega Red.
Yeah.
Like something like that.
It would have been so easy to do.
Yeah.
Or you could have the Soviets, not Soviets, they're gone, but Hydra have gotten some Russian files, and you could have done Red Guardian the right way instead of that stupid movie. You could have done all these kinds of things. Then you have to bring in Isaiah Bradley for one last hurrah. They can get with him, and you could play on the who's going to get the shield thing.
Well,
Bucky should have gotten it.
All of this happened at the same time. Victoria Alonso comes in, brings in her own writing crew, and you could tell Black Widow started out being one thing, but then suddenly some chick is Taskmaster.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, I gotta stop there, man. Taskmaster is one of my favorite.
I was about to say he just hit one of his biggest soapboxes.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters. And I remember seeing the trailer, and I saw the trailer. I was like, "That's a woman."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Hey, you could do a female Taskmaster, but give her the cool mask, give her the cool attitude. I don't care if she's gender swap. Just make her Taskmaster." That was not Taskmaster.
Not even a little bit.
What sucks is like that was a dude's body. That's what that's what you could tell. Like that's a dude's body, but like I can tell that's gonna be a woman. Yeah. And then sure enough it was, and like because you would see scenes where it's like that's kind of a woman's body, it's a man's body, and it it was such a sloppy mess. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, what happened
dumb.
was about halfway through the production, Victoria Alonso came in and kicked everything out, and they rewrote the whole ending of it.
Put a tick in it, make it gay, make it lame.
And it's just like you could if you understand story, okay, you can see when somebody screws with the story.
Mhm.
You can see it. Stephen King has this problem in the third act of all of his stories.
Everything he does,
his third acts are always, it's like he never comes out anywhere. So he just like basically makes it about nothing. And this happens over and over and over again. A good example of this is The Stand. You know, what was that even about? They wound up at the end where they began. And you're just like, why the hell would I even read this book? But that's always been his problem.
The Stand is a great insight into King, because King, I don't even know if King's a good author or if he's just an amazing character storyteller, because his characters are top notch every time. He has the best characters, but a lot of his narrative just falls apart.
Well, it doesn't always, honestly.
No,
like,
not always, but
he was at his best pretty much up until a few years after he had that car wreck that jacked him up.
Right.
Like the first few books after that were really strong, but really everything in the past 15 years or so, at least, has just really been a downhill thing. Like he had the Bill Hodges books, just like 3 of them, that Mr. Mercedes,
Finders Keepers, I think.
Those 3 books were actually really good, and The Outsider was really good. He doesn't always fail to. I've got almost at least every classic Stephen King, everything up until this newer thing. I have like first editions of all of them, and he was honestly at his best when he was coked out of his mind.
Except Cujo.
Well, ironically,
he
doesn't remember writing
editor.
Cujo. He doesn't remember writing Cujo.
Yeah, unfortunately, I remember reading it.
Cujo, but like he's always better when he has an editor that can dial back some of the weird crap and like get him a little more focused, and like, because he is an incredible writer. And I'll be honest, my favorite stuff he's written has been his novellas and short stories.
Oh, he's an incredible novella. I've always said to anybody who listens that he's the best novella writer.
Yeah.
But that where he gets in trouble is when he goes and extends it out to novels. Okay.
Yeah, when he has too much room.
Yeah.
It works with the Dark Tower because it's supposed to be that big and expansive.
Right.
It doesn't work with Under the Dome or Insomnia. Like,
but Rita Hayworth of The Shawshank Redemption, The Body.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
the breathing method is
breathing method.
I've
incredible.
always wanted that somebody to adapt, but they never did. App Pupil was adapted, but that's all 3 just out of one thing. Different.
Yeah, his shorter stuff. The Mist was really great.
Yeah. He has some incredible short stories. I mean,
but like the books by him that I go back and reread the most, though, are the older ones. Like I'll read Christine all the time. Christine was fabulous. Needful Things is fantastic. The Shining's fantastic. Like he's had some incredible books that are good the whole way through.
But the thing about him is if he makes a book about something.
Yeah, if he's got a message or an agenda, it's going to be a terrible book.
Well, if there's like a theme there that he lets happen, like in the what's the one with the crazy fan that
Lacey's Story?
No, the one where she hobbles the guy. She kidnaps
Misery.
Him and
him. Misery.
You know, well, that was him working out his fears about crazy fans. And he let the story go as dark as it needed to go, and it's where it needed to go, and it's a brilliant story because of it.
Yeah,
but
Doomakey was kind of like that too. Doomakey
the same as Bag of Bones. It's the exact
Mhm.
same novel.
It
as
is.
Bag of- I mean, it ends the exact same way, and
It does.
with the same like vague ending. I was like, this is this. I read it and I was like, holy shit, he just did Bag of Bones all over again. Did he? I mean, did he just like set it in a different place and change the principles and what?
I
the
like
heck?
Doohickey better though.
I do like Dim McKee a little better. Yeah,
I did because I'm an artist and the main character's a painter. Like I connect with that.
yeah.
But no, I
Well-
mean he's definitely a very good author. He gets more credit than he deserves. He's certainly he's nowhere near the quality of imagination and prose as Clive Barker is.
He can't carry Robert R. McCammon's jockstrap.
No, and
Robert McCammon kicks his ass.
oh yeah, Swan Song,
Swan Song, Usher's
Boy's Life.
Passing.
Yeah,
A Boy's Life is the book that I read more often than in anything.
Yeah, McCammon's a better writer. Barker's a better writer. Peter Straub is a better writer.
You mean Clive Barker?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Clive Barker.
Dude, books like Weave World and Imagica and the
as
Great
long as
Secret Show.
As long as he doesn't get too into the weeds, because when he gets into the weeds, you just want to scrub your brain out with soap reading some of this stuff.
He's like, the excessive gay sex I can get, the weed I can't.
Well, there's excessive gay sex, and then there's whatever that is.
Yeah. Then there's Clive Barker gay sex.
There's Clive Barker gay sex, yeah. And it's like I don't know, man. Maybe you did get laid at around that time or something. I don't know.
For me, Great and Secret Show and Cabal are two of the best things I've ever read in my life.
Right.
But they are a little less. They're a little more restrained on that end and much deeper in the imagination end of it. But yeah, I like Stephen King. I appreciate him, but he's definitely, he's not exactly the genius that he thinks he is.
Well, if you brilliant short story novella writer. I mean, different. There's some really genuinely incredible stories in like different seasons and Nightmares and Dreamscapes. And
that was great too. Night Shift was good.
And Something Past Midnight, I think.
5 Past Midnight.
5 Past Midnight. But when he gets to I think he gets too full of himself when he gets beyond that, because that pre-existing artifact, he goes chasing it rather than just carving it out. You can tell that this book should have ended chapters ago, and he's just chasing something. And eventually he just like slaps an ending on it and calls it a day. And with The Stand, he actually wrote himself into basically wrote himself into a snag that he couldn't get out of. And then he's taking a walk and he's like, oh, I'll just blow the whole thing up. And he's like, oh, that's it. That's the way forward. And so he blew the whole thing up and then wrote the rest.
Which is a shame because the first 2/3 of that book are one of the best books I've ever read.
Yeah. And after the explosion, it also goes to shit, He should have just stopped. He should have stopped it there. But either way, but I think the lesson to learn is don't let the story be what it's going to be. There's stories that are going to be longer. There's stories that are going to be more involved, and there's stories that are going to be simpler. And if you just let the story be what it's going to be, then you will wind up with like Tales of Narnia. Okay, he's got some stories that are extremely huge, like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. But then he has intimate, like almost detective story called The Silver Chair. And he's just, it's coming of age story like Prince Caspian, and they're all in the same series. But he let the story be what it was going to be, and then he didn't like say, okay, it's got to fit into this box.
Yeah.
You know, he just let it be what it was going to be. And you know, there's times where I was like, oh, why isn't Aslan in this entire? Why isn't Aslan in this book? It's because Aslan was elsewhere, you know. And then Aslan shows up, and it's like at the right amount at the right time. And then, you know, you go back and you're like, well, Aslan was in this book more than it would have happened the way it happened. And it's just, and that's pretty much just let the story be what it's going to be. You know, The Hobbit was a more intimate book than Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings, but nobody can tell me Hobbit's not just every bit as good as the Lord of the Rings. It's just a more intimate book, you know.
It's half of it is Bilbo remembering and wishing that he was back at his table eating bread and butter.
Yep.
Bilbo is not Frodo, okay?
No.
Not even a little bit.
No.
Not even a little bit.
Bilbo didn't have like until maybe the very end any kind of sense of duty.
No. Slide
I
down.
love that he just like sleeps all the way through the war at the end.
There you go. But go down a little bit. Let me
man.
let me give an example of this. One more. Yeah, a little bit more. One more. There. That girl right there. That down a little bit.
Gotcha.
There.
Yeah.
Okay, that is Switch. Okay.
Right.
She is a SJW, senator's daughter. And she's as progressive as they come. But every once in a while, when she's not thinking about it, she does heroic things. When she's not thinking about it, she's heroic. But if she's thinking about it, she's like, she hides behind people. She makes the wrong decisions. She's a little bit of a backstabber. But if she's not thinking about it, she's heroic.
Yeah.
And in me just letting her be who she's going to be, you know, just absolutely, she's the most fun thing. One of the most fun characters I've ever written. But she should be like the worst because, you know, purple hair, you know, progressive. You know, her dad's a Democratic senator, and she's like a pretentious, and she's always like getting him to intervene on her behalf. And she's a princess, you know, and she should be just horrible to read or to write. But she's fun because that one little quirk is like when she's not focusing, or when she'll do something like stand between somebody and a threat.
And then take a selfie of herself.
Well, she'll do that too. But
Yeah.
see, that's the brilliant. There's like this conversation she has with one of my other characters who's like only tells the truth, and she but basically gets told that her dog doesn't even like her. And just kind of gets stuck there, and she's like, I don't even remember my dog's name. What kind of person? What's wrong with me? And the other person says, my guess is a lot. And then she's like, oh, you don't do that. You don't tell people the truth like that. And he's like, why not? And she's
You
like,
don't, I do.
yeah, it's just why not? It's just, well, you just don't do that. And he's like, well, maybe you should. And she says, well, why? He says, then somebody will know that their dog doesn't like them. And that conversation just came organic. And then she's like, I liked it better when you were trying to kill us. But that conversation just happened because I let them be who they were going to be. And I just let it roll, you know?
Yeah.
And
but you talked about other writing projects at all. What else are you working on?
Well, I've actually finished the project for the Out of Obscurity compilation. We took public domain characters and wrote new stories, and it's going to come out very shortly. It's I took the original Ghost Rider. When among his exception, he was out of a Western magazine, and I took that and kind of updated him for the modern age. And I've got a couple of scripts already with the Ben Phelps. I've got like horror script and a kind of a fantasy script with him. One's 10 pages, one's 10 pages, the other one's 20 something pages. And I've working on a world Bible for a friend of mine named Wolfsbane Comics.
Oh, I was gonna have him on. You actually took his place on this night.
Oh, okay.
he couldn't do it. We'll have him on a later time.
Well, we went fishing and we hooked a marlin.
Hey,
nice.
We basically it's a book called Orphan Blue that I think is going to be really, really special.
That sounds like a great early 90s anime.
I was thinking that too.
Well, it's basically about this. There's like these secret orphan project isn't a project that it has no government oversight, but it's paid for by the government. Okay. And there's this collection of these orphan projects, and they're all like basically connected to an alien entity that wants to take over the planet. And so he's coordinating these projects to take over the planet. But there's one project that kind of like split off from the other ones. And it's Orphan Blue, you know, it's Orphan White, Orphan Yellow, and Roy G. Biv, basically. But the Orphan Blue is a project that split off from the other ones and kind of got buried to history. That has like an individual who is basically given cybernetic enhancements. But they just basically, to save the project, they mothballed him and like shut the project down and acted like it got destroyed because they figured out that they're under too much scrutiny and they weren't ready to fight back. And so they shut the project down and put it in hiatus. And this is years later when all these other projects are starting to come to fruition and started to make an impact. And the one person who knows about the Orphan Blue decides to restart the program to fight back. And it's the only thing that can fight back against the other ones. And so Orphan Blue is going to be that project.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
That is a great title.
We're working on. Yeah, it's a really great title. Yeah. But we're pretty excited about it. But it's at very early stages. Plus, I've got the FVRA files has several stories that are involved with it. One that I need to write that won't get out of my head. I got somebody very insistent. I got somebody very insistent.
We've got some peripheral stories on our campaigns. Well, we do that for each one. Like I totally get that. It's like a comic can't contain it all, you know?
Yeah. Well, this individual, he's actually, I was writing for a future out of obscurity, and he actually existed in comics before, but he keeps insisting that he wants to exist, and I've got to write his story down. And so that's probably my next project, to get that out of my head so he'll leave me alone. I mean, people they don't understand. Writing gets kind of like denigrated and kind of like downplayed, especially in the community that we're in, that it's somehow anybody can write, but not everybody's a writer.
Well, look at early Image Comics.
Exactly.
I've got the first 100 issues of Spawn right here, and there's nary a good story in any of them.
The art's phenomenal, though.
Oh, yeah,
the
art is amazing.
Phenomenal. But the thing about writing that people don't seem to understand is that if you're a writer, then you're closer to the ether than anybody else. We're right there on the edge, and we hear these signals, we hear the stories, we hear the whispers from the ether, and so we got to write them down. We got to bring them into creation. We got to bring them into fruition, you know. And and no matter how incredible we love art, no matter how much we love that part of it, they're downstream from the writers, and that's not
And
denigrating.
you can tell real fast when a book has a fantastic artist that's trying to carry all the weight, but it just can't. There's some books that like
exactly.
I bought them purely from the aesthetics, but you get into it and it's like I can flip through it and like the pretty pictures, but there's no story there.
And there's some artists that are good that maybe do good stagnant shots or covers, but they can't do sequentials to save their life. They can't tell a story with their art to save their life.
There's like one project that just proves this, and it's Starblades.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I'm not either.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why. It's the only book that Kyle Ritter did, and it's beautiful. It's kind of like got a Thundercats, Silverhawks kind of feel to it, like Rankin Bass, and it's absolutely incredible idea. It's got all these great
the art looks fantastic.
The art's incredible, and yet it has no discernible story to it.
That sounds like King's Spawn.
Yeah,
I do like the art a lot. The art's really good, but
it's that book. Book could have changed everything. And
I was actually talking about this with Josh. Like when I was like a kid, I read comics, read other books, but I would find myself reading a story and being like, I don't know what's going on, what's happening, what's wrong with me. And then it would happen over and over as I'm growing up. I'm like, am I just stupid? And then I realized, maybe, but like, oh, these were really bad writers.
Read anything Louise Simonson and you'll understand.
That's the thing is when you get a good writer, you're like, oh, I'm not dumb. Like this person just knows how to tell a story.
Yeah. The power pack that she wrote, them going down into Mutant Massacre tunnels. She took those little kids down into the Mutant Massacre tunnels, had them encounter Sabretooth, and fight off the Marauders. Find Leech and his, have to tell him that they passed his dead mama, and encountered like X Factor and all this other stuff. And then in the middle of that, they all switched their powers and they're like discovering their powers. And one of the brother actually takes his other brother's power and just like runs with it. And there's this great sequence where Arclight, one of the Marauders who, super power or whatever, super strength. She tries to hit the boy that has gravity power. And he was like speculating before what would happen if he increased his gravity and punched somebody with it. And she's like, "Oh, stand still, brat." And and he's like, "Oh, okay, lady, you asked for it." And you see him charge up that fist and he punches her and just like into next week. That moment is actually where I got the idea for Ironsides.
Nice.
Because that whole idea of punching somebody with gravity and what kind of punch that would be,
I was going back through X Factor, like the original run, because I love Archangel. Angel's my favorite, and that's when he gets transformed. That's my favorite X-Men.
Which Louise created. She created Apocalypse so she could do that.
Yeah,
that's how brilliant she is. She created Apocalypse just so she could change Angel to Archangel.
The power packs show up in that run, like right. I think right after when it's happening. But anyway, I was super surprised that if I were running Disney, like you guys should have done a power pack show like a long time ago. Like
that would be dope.
Yeah.
Cash in on that Stranger Things kind of vibe.
They're super young kids. They're like 8 or 9 years old, and thrown. Like I loved Runaways whenever that first came out. When that first 12 issues of Runaways was fantastic, and then they just totally crapped that show out. And I don't know. It seems like there's so many missed opportunities with all that stuff. Just from what we're talking about, like if people understood stories, you have an endless supply of cool stuff to work with if you would just work with it, Disney.
Yeah.
But Cooper, I'm gonna cut it off there, man. I gotta.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna cut off. I gotta my kids. I gotta do them in bed and all that kind of stuff. I love talking. Totally. I love talking with you, man. I would love to give you back on here.
It's been fun, man.
I would love to talk more about the creative process and the ether. Like I feel like that's what's kind of missing. I feel like that kind of rabbit chasing is kind of what's missing in indie comics.
Well, you want to pimp your
let me throw it back
stuff
up here
one more time. Tell people where they can find it, where they can find you.
Yeah.
Best ways to get in contact with you, that sort of thing.
Sure. Everything Telepathic Bunny. I'm everywhere. Just check a platform out, and if you go Telepathic Bunny, you'll find me if I'm on there. My show is called The Rabbit Hole. It's on YouTube, and I'm mostly on X, Telepathic Bunny.
X gonna give it to you.
X gonna give it to you, right? And I'm available for writing jobs, very competitive rates, and community service is on Fund My Comic. And I'm a brand ambassador for Fund My Comic.
Nice.
Which is the way forward to me. So
yeah, we've got ours up on Fund My Comic for the first time.
Check out.
We're excited to see how that goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
APOLLYON 20XX on Kickstarter, Fund My Comic, and Indiegogo. December 1st, everybody. Go check out Cooper's book here, everything that he's working on. And man, I gotta have you back on. I need to check out more of your stuff because I enjoy how you talk. I'm trying to get some interesting people on here. I did Doug Ernst, and then I did Isaac Young, and then yourself. And I feel like that's been like knocking it out of the park, 3 for 3. So
yeah,
I would love to talk with you again, man. I'm gonna get Wolf.
I do have a if you go fanfiction.com or fanfiction.net, you'll find it's called Barnabas Crotchety. Look up Barnabas Crotchety.
Sounds like an uncle of mine.
I did a lot of fan fiction on there. That's where I got started. So if you want to see my writing.
Anyway, my wife is texting me about the baby. All right. Cooper, nice meeting you, man. We'll have you back on.
Problem.
All right.
Hi, guys.
Peace.
See you. And that was fun.